Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation. Welcome to the Solution Club. It is January 5th, 2021, and after a winter break, we're back on the Solution Club, and we're deep in a conversation about the urgency of deploying solar radiation management to cool the planet, to first stop the exponential planetary overheating, and then I would say deploy even more so that we actually reverse it. We actually cool the planet down to a more livable temperature so that we don't lose vast numbers of species in Australia every Australian summer like we're doing right now. They're dying from the overheating. The overheating is causing the droughts, which cause the wildfires, which cause the extinctions. It's as simple as that. So I'm not just in favor of just stabilizing the temperature and keeping the barbecue on a medium bake or at a medium fire. I'm saying put out the fires. We need to cool the planet down to the pre-industrial Goldilocks zone that we all, knew and loved as kids, when you could, when life seemed like it could just go on forever. We need to cool the planet. But before we can cool it, we need to stop the overheating. So we need to do two things. A certain amount of mirrors would stop the overheating. Double that would cool it at a significant rate. And we've talked about how reducing emissions is not enough. So Professor Guy McPherson, here, I'm going to go ahead and get a second computer going in a moment so I can play some video from Guy McPherson and Ye Tao. But the essence of it in a nutshell is this, or maybe I won't because we're recording kind of new stuff right now. I can just link to that. But the essence of what they have to say is this. Guy McPherson, who's been studying this for decades, and frankly has all but given up, given how unresponsive humanity is to the category 5 fire alarm that's been blaring for decades now. He has identified no fewer than 76 self-reinforcing feedback loops driving exponential planetary overheating. And there's only one feedback loop that I know of that's actually counter to those, and it's a very weak one, right? Equivalent to putting your hand out the window to cause air friction to slow the car down when you're going 100 miles an hour and you're almost at the edge of the cliff. And that's black body radiation. As the planet overheats, a hotter planet will emit more infrared. But it's a very weak lever. Oh, let's wait till the planet is a real hot rock and then eventually it'll stabilize, right? That's like saying, let the fire in the house burn out. Eventually it'll completely burn out and there'll be no more fire. Yeah, that's true. There'll be no more fire, but there'll be no more house either, or kids in the attic, or goldfish in the bowl. So the bottom line is that to counter these 76 self-reinforcing feedback loops, like for example, the melting of Arctic ice. The more ice melts, the less natural mirror we have to reflect sunlight back into space. And the more dark blue ocean seawater we expose, which traps the heat, absorbs the heat. Another one is the burning of the Amazon. The more trees burn, the less living trees you have to sequester carbon, and the more emissions of CO2, methane, smoke, etc. you've got up in the atmosphere, causing more overheating. 76 self-reinforcing feedback loops. It's a runaway train. In simple terms, we are almost dead. We are so close to the edge right now, and it's overheating so quickly. We are almost dead. And so that's what, the big guns of solar radiation management are the only practical solution to solving this problem. Within the time frame that we have, we've got probably months at this point before, literally, probably months. Could be 5 months, could be 10 months, could be 15 months if we're lucky. If we're really lucky, it could be a couple of years, right? But like the alcoholic suffering from cirrhosis of the liver, I can't say which shot of whiskey is going to kill him. But I do know he needs to say, yes, Claire, go ahead.
Al Gore, have you reached out to him?
He's been reached out to.
And Bill McGibbon.
But again, he's part of, he's fallen into the money trap. This is a true story. This is, and you can look it up. This is exactly what's happened to Al Gore. Okay.
I saw Michael Moore's film, and it did implicate him in that way.
Yeah. So here's what happened. In 2006, he was on fire with, An Inconvenient Truth. I must have watched that movie 30 times, and every time I watched it, I learned something new, and that was my big wake-up call, right? And so you notice how, like, you would think, oh my goodness, with all that momentum back in 2006, wow, he's gonna change the world. What happened? An investor group in England got a hold of him and said, hey, and they started waving money in front of him. He's now got a net worth of hundreds of millions of dollars. Why? He's gone whole hog on projects like solar panels, renewable energy, and all that make money, right? Why get radical when you can just sell more solar panels and more efficient refrigerators and make money? So, and because of his connections, because of his decades in the Senate and as vice president and all that, and with his pedigree from An Inconvenient Truth, if Al Gore, if the phone rings and it's Al Gore, you pick up. And if he says, hey, I've got this investment fund, right, where we can both make money and save the planet at the same time, right? So Dr. Silas Rao, who's a regular in our channel here, The Conversation, he's here every Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Pacific time, which is 10 to noon Eastern. So from 7 to 9 a.m. Pacific time and from 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific time, he's here every Friday on the program Food Healers. Food Healers is about feeding everyone in the world plant-based foods, ending hunger and malnutrition, and also ending animal agriculture, which is the single biggest destroyer of the Amazon and of ecosystems generally, and the single biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, directly and indirectly. So before Dr. Silas Rao founded Climate Healers and Food Healers, and long before we got connected, he joined Al Gore's movement. And he did all the training and did all the work and all the courses. And then he said to Al Gore, he said, Mr. Gore, Mr. Vice President, what about animal agriculture? Al Gore did not want to hear about animal agriculture. His daddy was a cattle rancher.
Oh, no.
And they still own cattle ranching operations, and he loves his T-bone steak. Mama,
God.
Mama, that's a good T-bone steak. So, I'm starting to tell the vegans now the following message. To tell a non-vegan to take the meat and dairy off their plate is like telling someone, hey, let's all get dressed up for a Saturday night at the movies. Let's shave, shower, put on nice clothes, drive for 45 minutes, pay for the parking, walk the quarter mile, get to the movie theater, buy the tickets, and then spend the next 2.5 hours sitting in the lobby twiddling our thumbs and not watch the movie. See, for a non-vegan, the meat and dairy, that's the movie on the Saturday night. It's not, everything else is a sideshow. And so we need to recognize that. We are born and grown up in a culture where meat and cheese, that's what makes you big and strong. Puts hairs on your chest, boy, right? So he's not willing to say that, listen, what my daddy did for a living was wrong. He's just not willing to go there. And he's not willing to give up the meat. So he's addicted to meat.
Ocean Robbins convinced his own father to give up his way of life.
Listen, it can be done. I'm not saying it can't be done. But the thing is, Al Gore is addicted to so many things right now. He's addicted to money. He's addicted to hoarding. I lived in Mexico for 5 years. There's a saying in Mexico. there's 32 governors because there's 32 states in Mexico. What does every governor of Mexico, of a Mexican state, see when they look in the mirror in the morning? Anyone know the answer? What does every governor see when they look in the mirror in the morning? They see the next president of Mexico.
Oh.
Now, having worked with so many 100 millionaires at Microsoft and elsewhere, what does every 100 millionaire see when they look in the mirror? Anyone want to guess?
Oh, most wealthy one in the world.
No, they see the world's next billionaire.
Yeah.
So now that Al Gore is 100 millionaire, he's not focused on going vegan or no. He's focused on the big B, the billion, being the next billionaire. That's the nature of this addiction. And I suffer from it as well. I'm not immune. I'm not saying, oh, I'm better than all of them. No, my goodness. Ask my partner. I wake up in the morning. What's the first thing I do? I check my positions. How am I doing?
The head of the Novo Foundation, Peter Warren's son, he's pretty much a millionaire. He's into climate. He's into all this, everything you're talking about. He lives in New York. Somebody you could reach out to. I know him. I know the family.
Yeah, well, I'm not exactly dying of starvation, and I'm focused on climate, right? So it can be done, but it's the exception. It's not the rule.
I mean, to partner in this large plan of
no, we need partners urgently.
SRM. Wow.
So now is the time to sound the alarms and call everyone you know and say, you urgently need to join this conversation because we need to figure this out. And guess what? If we're wrong about SRM and there's a better solution, come tell us. Please come tell us. I'll shred all my plans and follow you if you've got a better solution. So what we're the system that we live in, the capitalist system, has us totally fragmented, right? With each of us trying to do our own thing. And so we conveniently say, well, that's nice, Jamin, that you're working on SRM, but that's not my issue. I'm focused on, urban permaculture, or I'm focused on, saving the whales, or I'm focused on, the orphans in Rio, or whatever. And so we get very, very fragmented. And one of the results of this is we're not able to have a frank conversation about what is it that's most urgent. What do we actually need to do to save life on Earth? What's it going to take? Because everyone doing their own thing, there's like 1 million nonprofits in the world right now. Over 1 million, all right? I'm program chair of the East Bay Sierra Club dinners in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is where I'm from. I live up in the state of Washington now on Whidbey Island. But where I'm from, I'm still the program chair. We've suspended the dinners due to COVID because we can't have gatherings. But at one of the dinners, we had a professor of sociology and public policy. And he said, if you look at all the nonprofits in the world, over 1 million of them, with a combined membership of over 1 billion people, it constitutes a massive superpower. But it's also, the body of nonprofits constitute the most dysfunctional superpower on the planet.
What?
Because they literally cannot get together to save their own lives. And why is that? Again, it gets back to money. They see each other as competitors. They're all competing with each other for money. Hey, look at what I'm doing. It's so good. And they've all got a story about how what they're doing is essential to saving life on Earth, down to the last one. So I use the analogy of like 20 drivers of 20 cars, single passenger vehicles, and they're all stuck on the side of the road in the mud, and they're all pushing their car, each one's pushing their respective bumper, trying to get their, 1.5-ton car out of the mud, and it's not working. And the more they swear and complain and light another cigarette and push as hard as they can, it's just not working. But if the 20 of them were to get together and say, hey, let's do this one car at a time, all 20 cars would be on the road. Now, which one do you start with, right? Do you start with the car where, the mother-in-law in the backseat is bleeding to death and needs to get to the hospital urgently or she'll die? Yes, you don't start with the guy who's about to go to the damn football game, right? He can wait, the game will go on. You can listen to it on the radio, chill out. And so what I'm saying is the million nonprofits, we need to have a frank conversation about what is most urgent of all these urgent things. They're all urgent. They're all urgent. I get it. What's the most urgent? Putting out the burning house fire, putting out the fire. We've got to stop this exponential planetary overheating. This is sheer madness to not make that number one. Now, the good news is that along the way to cooling the planet, we can actually do a bunch of other good things in parallel. We don't just have to do that. But most importantly, cooling the planet will solve and prevent not just massive suffering, but the extinction of most complex life on Earth. If we don't solve that problem, everything else is moot, absolutely moot. So the 20 drivers need to get together and say, okay, who's got the mother-in-law who's bleeding to death? Let's get that car on the road first so they can drive down the road and get to the hospital and save her life. Okay, and then what's next? Okay, the woman's about to have a baby. Okay, her. Okay, next, etc. The guy with the football game is going to go last. Okay, but we've got to get this thing going. Now, for years now, I've been pushing, right? So let's take the Sierra Club dinners, right? I figured, great, we've got this venue. My dad was program chair of the Sierra Club dinners before me, going back to the 70s. And so we've got this great community, all these great liberals, diehard Sierra Clubbers in the Bay Area, very enlightened, Berkeley, San Francisco, really great community. I thought, great. If anyone is willing to hear this message, it's them. So I bring Professor Guy McPherson to the East Bay Sierra Club dinner, right? And he gives his talk and people are all teared up and everything. And this one woman in the audience raises her hand and said at the end of his presentation and says, listening to your presentation, I kind of feel like, what are we all supposed to do now? Go home and commit suicide? Right? Because he paints a pretty bleak picture, because it is a bleak picture. The house is on fire. It's not that it might catch fire in 2050 or 2100. It's on fire now. Right? And so I said, great, we've got a good start. Let's keep at this. So I brought in more speakers. I brought in professors from Stanford and Berkeley and kept on it. And you know what the people at the Sierra Club did? All mostly retired, mostly well-to-do. They basically said, Jamin, we're tired of this. We want to go back to what I cynically call happy motoring. Somebody gets on a plane and flies to China and goes on a hiking trip and takes a bunch of pictures and gives a slideshow about all the pictures they took of the colorful kids in China and Tibet. Happy motoring. The Sierra Club community, their answer to climate change is happy motoring. And they got angry and I got angry. Because I kept at it. I said, no. I'm the program chair. This is what we're going to do. We got to save life on Earth. I said, listen, we're the Sierra Club. If we don't get on top of this, who do we expect to do it? NASCAR? The NFL? Right? So
a TED Talk?
A TED Talk?
Have you given a TED Talk on this?
I haven't given a TED Talk. No, I haven't.
Wouldn't that be a good idea? And then And then NPR would feature your TED Talk, National
You know,
Public
yeah,
Radio.
and you know, the thing is, I could do that. What we're doing right here, I believe, is something more powerful. We're creating collective intelligence, and we're getting right to the heart of it. And in conversations like this, I think a TED Talk would be a good thing. So those are tactics, but I still feel like we don't have the right strategy, because there have been TED Talks on solar radiation management. There's been a lot of stuff published. It's going back for decades. People have been publishing stuff on solar radiation management. Professor Roger Angel of University of Arizona has been writing about this for decades, literally decades.
What are the negative side effects that you said would happen with it?
So, well, not necessarily negative. I said there would be side effects. Let me first start with some positives. So, for example, if we put some arrays of solar radiation of mirrors over, say, like coral reefs, for example, one side effect, in addition to planetary scale cooling, we would also have localized cooling for those very coral reefs, which can help save the coral reefs. So that's a positive side effect. What I mentioned, for example, vast canopies in desert regions, right, to cool the planet, because it would be very inexpensive to roll out huge canopies of thin film reflective material, which, I mean, literally, you open up a bag of potato chips that has, you look on the inside, it looks like silver metallic, right? That's there as an oxygen barrier. And the amount of metal that they had to deposit on that thin film plastic is literally on the order of 10 atoms of metal. So it's very, very inexpensive in terms of the material cost. And so I was thinking, great, we could roll out these vast canopies in deserts to reflect sunlight back to space. They're a lot cheaper than rolling out floating mirrors in the ocean, which have to be managed and tethered and anchored and all this kind of stuff. And Guy McPherson, who's a conservation biologist, he's the one who introduced me to Dr. Ye Tao. When I shared that idea with him, he said, Jamin, these desert ecosystems are teeming with life. They're fragile ecosystems. And if you come along there and put these vast canopies and et cetera, you know, that could be very disruptive. That could kill life. So I've definitely taken my foot off the accelerator of the desert canopy solution. I say, okay, great, let's do the ocean. People have asked, well, you know, what about the sea life and plant life in the ocean that depends upon sunlight? So the idea is not to take, like, you know, a huge chunk of the ocean the size of, say, I don't know, Taiwan, and just make a single giant mirror that just boom, that chokes off all life underneath it. The idea is to spread out a whole array of round mirrors where, you know, on a square mile basis, maybe 20% of that area is covered with mirrors. So it's not, the idea is not to deprive all life. Now, I'm sure from time to time, you know, a fish is going to, you know, ram its face into a mirror, into the side of a mirror, and maybe die or give it a bloody nose, or I don't know what. So, you know, those are the kind of side effects I'm talking about. But, you know, if the fire department came and blasted high pressure hoses to put out the fire in my house, they might also knock over the goldfish bowl and kill some goldfish. Does that mean you don't call the fire department when the kids are stuck in the attic? So, you know, I'm not saying I don't care, I'm this evil dude who likes, you know, fish to suffer or anything like that. But I'm also saying we need to do this. Because guess what? If we don't do it, all those fish are going to be dead, right? Not just the unfortunate few who bump their nose into the, and we make the mirrors round precisely so that, you know, there's no like sharp edges for a whale or other fish to ram into and really do serious damage, right? So it's, you know, I'm not saying that there's really, I don't see any easy, simple answers to this where we can just say, there it is. It's that simple. We just need to do this and that's it. These things need to be studied, but we're not even at the point of studying them very intensively, right? Dr. Yatow started this as a part-time thing. It's not even what they hired him to do at Harvard, right? He needs money to be able to hire more researchers and publish more and travel more. But it feels like a tug of rope where it's just me and Guy McPherson and Yatow and a few others pulling, and then the entire capitalist system pulling in the opposite direction.
What about Humanity Rising? They've been exposing some good stuff going on, I think, in Denmark and Holland, and circular economies that are working locally.
Those are all very interesting and all very good, right? But none of those are getting at the heart of cooling the planet through SRM. None of them, not a single one.
Wow.
Not a single one.
All the various schools of public health would, I mean, I could take this recording and give it to the School of Public Health at Columbia and the School of Public Health at Brown, where my granddaughter's going to major in public health, and, you know, expose it in that way. You could take it around.
Please do,
Yeah.
please do. And please invite them to come to this conversation so that we can give them a proper presentation. And in fact, let me share some stuff from Yatow. Let me get this other computer going so I can do that. Here, I'm going to pause recording while we do that.